Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're going to tackle a huge question, one that really sits at the very heart of business, management, and yeah, even our own careers. It's a puzzle that, honestly, companies and all of us have been trying to solve for decades. I mean, that's the ultimate question, isn't it? From Fortune 500 CEOs trying to steer these massive companies to a brand new employee just hoping to make their mark, understanding what actually drives success is the absolute key to achieving it. You get this right, and everything else just kind of falls into place.
But, and this is a big but, here's where it gets really complicated. A recent massive review in the Journal of Management Scientific Reports found that we don't just have one or two answers to that question. Get this, we have over 200 different performance theories, each one with its own special take on what makes people and companies successful. Now, you might think, hey, more ideas? That's a good thing. But the researchers behind this study, they argue the total opposite. This overload of theories, with every single one being pushed as some novel contribution, has, ironically, slowed us way down. It's created this kind of intellectual gridlock, where it's almost impossible to see the forest for the trees.
Okay, so let's dive in. Here's the game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with this problem of just having way too many theories. Then we'll uncover a really simple but powerful solution. And finally, we'll look at how it could change the entire way we think about success.
So first up, let's really get into this overload problem. With more than 200 theories floating around, managers and leaders are basically left in a fog of uncertainty. This flood of ideas hasn't brought clarity, it's brought paralysis. So how in the world do you cut through all that noise?
Well, to cut through all that clutter, a team of researchers decided to do something incredibly ambitious. They went all the way back to the beginning. They analyzed the entire history of performance research. We're talking nearly 75 years of it, just to see if they could find the common threads, the fundamental patterns hidden underneath all that noise. And wow, what an undertaking this was. I mean, this was not a casual look back. They systematically analyzed over 15,000 articles published all the way back to 1946. They used computer-aided techniques to sift through more than 20,000 keywords to see how all these ideas were connected, and they ended up synthesizing almost 240 distinct theories into one single cohesive picture. Their whole goal was to find what they call meta-theoretical constructs. Now, that's a fancy academic term, but the idea behind it is actually super simple. Think about it like cooking. You could have hundreds of different cake recipes, but they pretty much all share the same basic ingredients: flour, sugar, eggs. These researchers were looking for the flour, sugar, and eggs of performance theory. And you know what? After digging through all that data, they found it. They discovered that nearly every single theory of performance, no matter how different it seemed, could be boiled down to just three core ingredients. They called it the core model, and it's this beautifully simple formula: performance equals capacity plus opportunity plus relevant exchanges. Okay, so let's break down those three ingredients, because understanding them is everything. The real power of this model is that it works at every single level, from one person all the way up to an entire corporation. All right, first up is capacity. This is basically the raw potential or power to perform. For you or me, that's our knowledge, our skills, our abilities, your expertise in a coding language or your knack for public speaking. For a company, it's the collective version of that. It's cutting-edge tech. It's skilled workforce. It's awesome supply chain. Simply put, it's what you've got. But having all that capacity is pretty useless without opportunity. This is all about the circumstances that let performance actually happen. At the individual level, this is your job role, your specific responsibilities, and what's expected of you as, say, a project manager. For the company, it's the bigger organizational structure. Is it a flat, nimble startup or a rigid, top-down corporation? This is the context you're in. And finally, and this one is so crucial, you have relevant exchanges. Performance doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? It's all about interaction. For an individual, this means your relationships, the quality of your connection with your boss, with your mentors, with your teammates. For a company, it's about its transactions with the outside world, its relationships with customers, deals with suppliers, and strategic partnerships. It's all about how you connect. But here's the thing, the core model isn't just a neat way to categorize old ideas. Its real purpose is to give us a roadmap for the future, a tool for actually testing what we think we know about performance and for discovering what we don't. So the researchers proposed this really rigorous plan.
Instead of just chasing the next shiny new theory, they say we should focus on testing the ones we already have. This is basically a call to build a solid foundation of knowledge instead of just adding more floors to a shaky building. Now, this is where it gets really fun. One of the coolest parts of this new roadmap is the idea of staging a horse race between competing theories. By setting up studies where two different ideas predict two different outcomes, we can finally see which one actually holds up under pressure. So, for example, let's take two famous theories that both fall under that relevant exchanges bucket. In one corner, you've got leader-member exchange theory, or LMX, which says the quality of the relationship between a boss and an employee is what's most important. And in the other corner, you have equity theory, which says, nope, what really matters is if an employee feels things are fair. So now we can ask a really specific, testable question. Imagine a team where the boss has a fantastic relationship with one or two favorites. LMX theory says that's great, but what if the rest of the team sees this as deeply unfair? Equity theory says that's terrible. So which force wins? Does the benefit of a few great relationships outweigh the cost of everyone else feeling like things are unfair when it comes to the team's total performance? Answering concrete questions just like that is how we make real progress. It takes us away from just collecting theories like they're baseball cards and moves us toward building a body of strong, dependable knowledge about what truly drives success in the messy, complicated real world. So when you boil it all down, the real point of this entire paper isn't to give us yet another new theory. It's to argue for a totally different kind of innovation, one that comes from looking back with fresh eyes, not just constantly chasing whatever's next. The authors wrap it up with this really powerful statement. They argue that the most meaningful way forward is to rigorously test the ideas we already have. It's a call for substance over novelty, for building a deeper, more reliable understanding rather than just a wired or more confusing one. And that leaves us with a really provocative final thought for this explainer. In a world that's obsessed with the new, maybe the most revolutionary thing we can do is to just stop, look back, and finally truly understand the foundations that we're already standing on. Maybe the key to the future of performance is actually hidden in its past.